lighting the lamps with his little thing.
Gas lamps?
Gas lamps, oh yeah, that's just a little, and the gas man, they were little mantles, the gas man. Mr. Allen was the gas man, the lamplighter as we call them. And there was nothing, it's kind of a dull place, you know, to me at that age, you know, there was never anything. And my father worked in the bleach fields, which was the lifeline of the Vale of Leven. There was the works, factories, or what we call them, right along the Leven's banks. Dulhaven.
What did they make?
Well, they started Dulhaven, the cloth came into Dulhaven white, and they bleached it. Well, it was not white, but greyish, you know, the kind.
Yeah.
But they bleached it. To begin with, they bleached it out in the fields, you know, spread out in the fields. And then they got a little bit more, I don't know what you'd say, but they started to have some kind of a machinery with a, the chemical that they bleached it. And that's where John Kennedy worked in the bleach house. And then my father worked further along the Leven in Cordell works. Well, the cloth was taken up along there was a little railroad run right along the waterside, and this little tug, as we called it, little engine, took the cloth up to Cordell, where it was dyed and printed, block printers. That was the tradesmen. They were real good tradesmen. A lot of them came out here, and Martin Haney came out here. He was a block printer, and then they were good, you know. And that was the cloth was then shipped away to foreign countries. I just don't know which countries. And it was made into several things. You know, these red table covers that you used to use in the afternoons on your table, red table covers. And then further along was further along the banks it was called Crofton Gear was the right name, but it was just called the craft. And some other process was done there. They were still dyeing up there. I had an uncle who was a dyer there, and I don't know too much.
It all had to do with cloth.
All cloth.
All the things.
All cloth. And they made these work handkerchiefs, and these, the kind of they printed these. A lot of block printing, and then there was still another place that was over the other side of Leven, was called Dalmurra, and it was still to do with cloth. But by this time, the cloth was all processed and ready to be made into different things, like, a lot of people used to take a bit now and again, made the chair covers and one thing or another, you see. And that was the industry. Now, what's the Steve?
About your father.
Oh, yeah. Well, my father worked in Cordell. What he done was, he was a colour mixer. Really, he was a colour mixer. But he worked at the fires, they called it, but it was the boilers, firing the boilers to make the steam for the work to go, for the work to go. And he worked there, and
what would his hours have been?
Oh, his hours were, well, if somebody wasn't able to come in, after having a big night, my father would be in his bed, and the boss would come up and ask him, Andy, will you come down? So-and-so hasn't come in. My father would get up and away would go, and my mother would be calling for everything. And why can't you go and get Big Alec McNee or somebody else to go? But no, he always has to come for you, because they're no so soft. They wouldn't go. But anyway, then sometimes they would be he would have to go at 4 in the morning. And he'd no time during the day for break for dinner. We had to take it down to him. We had to carry his breakfast down and his dinner down. And of course he was home.
On a usual day, how many hours would he work on a regular day?
I think 12. I think they worked 12 hours a day. Yeah, I think that was what it was. Because we worked 10.
Yeah.
See? Because we had the 2 hours off for our
Breakfast and lunch.
breakfast and dinner.
And how did he get his meals then if he
We-
didn't come home?
Well, that I went down with him. I carried his breakfast down when I was old enough. But Maggie Kennedy, she was the one that my mother used to give her 7 pence a week, a penny to spend and 6 pence for her bank for taking my father's dinner, not his breakfast, because my mother would, run around with his breakfast sometimes herself. And Maggie always took his dinner down.
This was before you kids were old.
Oh, before I was old enough to go with the dinner, before I was old enough, of course, Joanne wasn't near old enough. And one day, Maggie says we got a half holiday from school, and Maggie said, maybe this will be too long. Maggie said, why, come on down with me to your father's dinner, of course. And they went to go back to school, and it was raining. So, of course, that's why we had the half holiday. So I went down there, and we left the dinner. But went, sometimes the old gateman wouldn't let me in, but we got in anyway, and got his dinner, gave him his dinner, and then we came away. And Maggie had on a red tammy, and it must have been in the fall because the place was full of leaves, And we came at the leaving, going along the leaving, there was an embankment that came down, sloping down, and then there was a little white dyke, as we called it. There was a little wall, about that breadth, that you could walk right along, but we were always told, if I see you doing that white dyke, what we would get. Well, anyway, we filled Maggie's tammy with leaves. We're having a grand time down in the wee white dyke, emptying them in and then seeing how they were, because Leven is the second fastest flowing river in Scotland, And you knew that if you threw something in, it was gone in a minute. Well, we did that 2 or 3 times, and this time the tammy fell in. The tammy fell in. Maggie started to cry. I wouldn't care, but my granny gave it to me. My granny gave it to me. Well, we followed that tammy all around the Leven bank till we came to Dalhousie, which was the other end of the village, and it stuck. There was a lead. I don't know if you know what a lead is, but it was a lot of where it caught all the debris, Well, here was poor Maggie's tammy resting in among that. Well, we're standing looking at it because there was nothing we could do. But on the wall, 2 or 3 places right along the Leven bank, there was a life belt and a long pole with a hook in the end. This was when they fell in. You see, they hooked them out right up on the wall. So we were standing, and these 2 men came along and asked us what was the matter. Maggie says that tammy was down there. So of course the men got the tammy and just, like that. So she was quite happy. So she went up the avenue right there, which was at her house. See, Dalhousie was just 5 minutes from your house. And I had to go all the way back up home myself. And what I got when I went, because I hadn't come home from school. My mother didn't know where I was, And all that time taking us all on the water side. But that was Maggie. Well, my grandfather was quite an elderly man. He was 87 when he stopped working. And he wouldn't wear glasses because he always said that was just pride. just pride to wear glasses. And he was a tradesman, he was a skilled tradesman. He was a brass finisher. Now, I don't know what that meant, but it was to do with brass and of course I said they had to let him go.
What kind of a work was it if he was a brass finisher? What did they do where he worked?
Well, they had, I don't know what they did.
Was there a metal shop
It was a
down
metal.
then?
Oh, yeah, that was where he was.
Oh, I see.
That was a metal
What
shop.
they made, though.
I don't know.
You don't know what they made.
I don't know
Yeah,
what they made.
that's okay. I just wondered.
But that's all I know. He was a brass finisher. And he never bothered to look the time. When he woke up at night, he went to bed very, very early, sometimes around 7 o'clock, because it wasn't home till about 6, or 7:30. And whatever time he woke up at, he would just get dressed and off he would go to his work. So this morning, my father used to say to him, "What's the matter with you? Can't you look the time? Oh, what's the difference?" And this morning when he got up, and away he went down to his work, and my father happened to be working late. And of course when he came in, my grandfather had flown, so he couldn't think where he would be. But he just said, well, he maybe is going to, he just kind of guessed. So when he came home that night, my father says, "What time did you get to your work this morning?" He said, "Well, I had to go over the gate. There was nobody around." But he said, I think it was 1 o'clock.
Do you suppose he didn't look at the clock because he couldn't read the clock? Do you suppose his eyesight was bad?
Well, I don't, probably that, because you see, he was spoiling work. And that's why they let him go, you see. But he lived for a couple of years. He was 89 when he died. But
And he lived with you all that time until he died?
Until he died, yeah. But
That was your father's
father. Yeah, Bob Wood. Oh, Bob Wood. He was very well known, because he'd always been around, he was never off the hill. When he wasn't working, he was never off. After he stopped working, he was up the hill. And this philanthropist, as we would call him here, Mr. Wiley, was a member of Parliament for Dunbartonshire. And he was very generous, the kids would bow to him and all this, and he'd give them a threepenny bit or a sixpence or something. And they always drove. He had a single sister and brother, Mr. Hugh and Miss Wiley. We don't know her name, but everybody wanted to be Miss Wiley when we were playing at house. We all wanted to be Miss Wiley because she was rich. And so he would, they used to take a ride. They went down, they always went to parish church. In fact, Miss Wiley is buried where in the parish church ground that looks directly to Caudle House where they lived. Her grave looks like. So they would be driving one of these, would it Brougham or something like that, or just.
Yeah.
And Mr. Wiley always wore grey, and a grey, we said half tile, top hat, only grey, not a big one. Just, that's how Mr. Wiley used to always be. So my grandfather, and he got, they got talking. He would talk about the hills, and my grandfather would talk about this, that, and yon, And Mr. Wiley was quite a, not a common man, but a man for the people. He was for the people all the time. So my grandfather and he got on very well. My father was very quiet man. He would, instead of saying to the boss, "Why don't you get somebody else?" he would get up and go. That was stupid. Yeah.
That's the way he was.
That was the way he was. It was my mother that was the one that had the bringing up about the the family in a way, you know. He was a provider, but as far as discipline was, no. My father would, we would be fighting, Joanne and I, or who was to wash the dishes, you know. And he would say, "Go and play and I'll do them." Yeah. But my mother came in and caught him. Dear help him. Oh yeah, poor soul. He was a good man, very good family man. Never was it. Home was one night a week, Saturday night. He and Lizzie Patterson, Mrs. Mackenzie's daughter-in-law, Laura's wife, went up to the movies in the Vale, up in Alexander. There was none in Renton.
Your mother wouldn't go?
No.
They didn't go out together?
Oh yes, they would go out together. But they used to go to the Empire. That was where there would be plays, the Barber of Seville and the East Lynne and all this kind of stuff.
Would this have been in Renton?
No, that was in Alexandria.
I see.
There was nothing in Renton.
No.
Nothing in
And
Renton.
they did go to those together?
Oh yeah, my father and mother. And one time we were, Dan and I was there.
Oh, that was when you were grown then.
Oh, that was when we were grown, yeah. You don't want that.
Oh, no, that's all right. Yes, I just
Go
meant...
ahead.
And you see, in the Empire, there were certain prices for certain seats, you know. And between each section, there was a wee gate. You just, you know. So my father and my mother would come into and would buy the cheap seats, you know. That would be maybe nearer the back. Of course, it was, when, you know, you could see and hear everything. But my mother would keep on going, opening all the gates, but my father wouldn't. He would stop. He would stay where he paid for it. She would go, we did. Opening the little gates. We saw her one night. We just couldn't help to laugh. But that was...
She was a bold one.
No, she was a good... You know, you always think they're awful hard when you're young. Oh, she was the hardest thing. We asked for something. Where do you think I would get the money? Where do you think I'd get the money? Oh, well, you'd get it up in the store quarter or something would be coming through. Never mind. And Joanne and I were always dying. This was, of course, when we got older. To see the cooperative share book. We could never, but we hunted highly to see how much money she had, you know, because that was the only banking we could do. And Joanne says, well, then, get it, we'll find out. And this night, well, we'd been looking, we hadn't been looking, no, that was there, we hadn't been looking this night, and all of a sudden, I accidentally, you know, she had one of these pans that you had, the cake pan there, and she had it on the wall like this, you see, with the back of the bottom of the pan hanging out. I came against the pan and out fell the cooperative. But you know, we couldn't make heed nor tail out of it. We didn't know what it was all about, so we don't know any more, but that was where she had hidden it. Oh dear. Yeah, and then we went, this time you were saying about my father, we went with my father's dinner. Twice a year they cleaned out all the, like the chimneys, the flues they called it, but really all the chimneys. And the soot was all in a square, you know, where it had, you know, would be pushed out or something, but it was all in one place, and it would be probably taken away from there. And my sister and I were down with the dinner this day and were dressed. It was the first Sunday in May. And we'd all got our new rig out on, you know.
Why did you get new rigs for the first Sunday?
Well, that was the
May?
first Sunday in May. That was when we changed. You go and, where is it you get all your new clothes for?
Well, sometimes people do it Easter.
Well, no, it was the first Sunday in May. And
It's the change from the winter to
the
the
changing
spring.
from the winter to the spring. And Joanne had a navy blue velvet dress. Well, it wasn't exactly a dark navy. It was a kind of, between a royal and a navy velvet dress, and it was a lovely dress, you know. the woman across the street had made it.
Oh,
Is it no going?
oh yeah, it is. It's all right.
And I had on a, this is a lot of nonsense, Lou.
Oh, it isn't. Go ahead.
I had a grey suit. I was, of course, 4 years older almost. And I had a grey suit, a dress. And I had a crimson velvet piece here like a yoke. And velvet buttons here. And then a jacket. Oh, my jacket was 3/4 length. And it had grey velvet cuffs turned up. And a velvet collar.
About how old would you have been? Do you remember?
Well,
I just wondered.
wait a minute.
approximately.
There's a school picture. One of my friends at home has a school picture of me in it, and I think I'd be about 12.
Okay, so Auntie would be
About 8. Yeah, I'd be about
all
12, you see. And we got there all right, and lovely hats, biscuit colour, strawy, satin ribbons, you know. And white gloves. So we got down to my father, and I was walking in front. You see, we had to come along and then down because this was a big hole, you see. And then Miss Joanne, she was down in the hole. Straighten my father, my poor father. What will your mother say? What will your mother say? That was always bothering him. And we got her out and shook her and carried on, but I don't know. I can't remember too much of what happened, but I know plenty would happen. The reaction.
You don't vividly remember it
No.
because it didn't happen to you. It was
But I was supposed to have more sense and not be watching her.
Yeah.
The oldest one in the family is
I always
supposed to know.
got it, yeah, I always got it. But anyway, that was that. That was that.
Tell a little about your mother.
Well, my mother was a very good, hard-working person. You know, she worked hard. The things were, you know, scant. You know, I mean, there wasn't much money in the wage line, you know, because there was no unions or anything like that in these days. And my father's pay, I think, only amounted to 19 shillings a week, which I don't know just how that would work out, but that wasn't much. And sometimes my mother would do a neighbour's washing. You know, this Mrs. McPhilmy, who had a boot store, a little boot store in the building beside us. She would ask my mother, you know, she was awful busy, and she had a big family. I think there was 12 of the McPhilmys, or either 10 McPhilmys and 12 Cunninghams, which were one up and one down. And yeah, and they were all nice families. Daisy McPhilmy was my age, and my mother would do her washing, and she might get 2 shillings or something for that, you know. And you know, she eked up a wee bit.
Had she worked before she was married, do you know?
Oh, and my mother worked she worked in the craft. That was up in Alexandria, you see, because my Auntie Mary, my mother's sister, lived right at the craft gate. And she used to stay, get there and get her meals, you know. Breakfast.
Now, was this the Auntie Mary that came to the...
No. This is Auntie Mary Miller.
Oh,
You hear me talking about Jean Miller.
Yes.
Well, it's Jean Miller's mother.
okay.
Auntie Mary. She was the oldest in my mother's family. It was she and my mother that broke away from Greenock because there was no work, and came over to the Vale.
I see.
Had to get work in these factory places. We didn't call them factories, but the fields. They just called them the fields. And they came over here to get the work there because there was nothing down. And they both stayed with Auntie Mima's mother, whom boarded with her. She was a widow, and she took in boarders. It was just Auntie Mima and a brother, what was his name? Davy Glenn, and Auntie Mima, and her mother, and then my mother and Auntie Mary boarded there
I see.
till Auntie Mary got married. She got married from there. But my mother, as I remember, when I was going to school, many a day when Marion was just little, I used to have to take Marion. I used to have to stay off to watch Marion while she was washing, because you had to go round the back and into the wash house, And it was an all-day affair. And she used to have to come and, I'd have to run my father's dinner and so on. By this time, Maggie was past that, I was able to do that. Mm-hmm. And Marion was just a baby. Well, she was walking, maybe 2 or something like that. And I was they got in one day every 2 weeks to the wash house. You had to get all your wash done and that. And then the next day, if it was a bad day, the day you were washing, you were allowed to hang your clothes out to noontime the next day, but not afternoon time. You had to take them all in for the next person to go in.
What if it rained for 2 days?
Well, you were just out of luck. We had pulleys. We had pulleys.
Inside the house?
Oh, you never saw a
You would do your wash anyway, regardless of the weather, because you wouldn't have another chance for 2 weeks.
You wouldn't have enough clothes to change.
Yeah, but what, did you hang them inside your house?
If you ever get a chance to see Velma's slides, you'll see the pulleys.
Oh, I did see her slides.
Well,
they're
they're in the kitchen. My man had it hanging clothes. It's a long pole like this. Willie McKim made mine. He was a joiner anyway. A long pole with 2 ends, see? And there's a rope put through this to here, and then there's another rope put through the other end of this thing. And they have pulley on the ceiling. They put a pulley, like a little wheels in the ceiling, and then they hitch up this pole, and you pull it up. You pull it to, you have the 2 ends of rope.
Sure.
And you pull it up, and then you have a thing on the wall.
Yeah.
And then you put it back and forth.
You put your clothes on it and then
raise
them up to the ceiling.
Right up to the ceiling, yeah.
Of course, it would be warm up
and they
there.
were flapping in your face.
Oh, well, the long johns would be flapping in your face, Sometimes, no, they didn't bother you too much. I mean, of course, the fireplace was always the big open fireplace, and they dried no time, the pulleys. So, you managed.
Yeah.
You really did. But many a time I think we were better, it was, when you look back, you think it was a terrible, terrible trying time, but at the time it wasn't, because it was just the same as everybody else,
Right, right, everyone was doing it.
Everybody was doing it. And you had to pass the key on to the next person, and you were passed the washing house key.
Now, you said your mother was the disciplinarian
Yes,
in the
she
house.
was.
How old would you be before she'd stop telling you what you should do in your family? Would you just say a few words?
Well, I'm not going to say this because it's just so foolish, but we done everything. Your mother knew. Whatever your mother said was that was law. That was law. Your mother said it. And when she went to buy clothes, buy us dresses, we always got a new outfit every year. But she went up and she picked, if it was a sale, a clothes, a material, regardless of the colour, if it had been bright orange, it was cheap. We got it made into suits. I was telling Joanne that I could never wear brown, Louis, because I was always very sour complexion, still am to this day. But I thought I'd always the jaundice, And so this time she went up to the store. It was always up. She never went past the cooperative because they got a dividend. And the store was in the next town, Alexandria. And Joanne and I, she bought material for Joanne and I for suits, as we costumes they were called then, brown. Brown? I was always, and another time, she went up to the store, and there was a sale of raincoats. Well, she bought us these two raincoats to wear my covered coating. Well, mine, the pockets of mine, you'd have thought I was carrying the national date, trying to get my hands into it. Trying to get my hands in the pockets. And Joanne and I were whispering. No, we didn't like them, you know. No, we didn't like
You didn't say it right out, huh?
Oh, no. But we were in the bedroom. We were in the room. I was going to say the bedroom. It was in the room. Parlour, bedroom, everything else. And she came in. I heard you whispering in there. Well, she clouted us. She clouted us. And she was so ungrateful. The beautiful covered coating. Now, I could have picked up something that was cheap, cheaper than these, but I thought you'd like the cover. So the room window was away down, you know, and you remember the old man I showed you in the picture, the Mr. Mackay played the concert.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, they lived upstairs, so I was shutting the window, so I didn't want the Mackays to hear us. Up went the window. I don't care. I'll let them know what ungrateful lasses I have. and another time, Lou, well, we're a wee bit older by this time. I was really able to go to Glasgow by myself, up in the streetcar. And I had to change it on my own and cross over and get the Glasgow car. Well, I was sent up to this warehouse to get tea. It was covered coats again. She always swore by that. But you know what had come out was Burberrys. And you know, that was the latest style, the Burberrys. And there was, they were very nice. And I was,
what were they like then?
The Burberry, well, they were like the raincoats that we have today, that colour, the little collar and the tooth pockets and, you know, just the same idea. But this was something new that had come in, Burberrys. And I says, could we not get Burberrys? You'll get covered coating, last longer, you know. Well, I'm rebelling all the way up. Boy, the things I did, and then I got it when I got home, of course. I says, well, I'm going to get Burberrys, Joanne and I'm going to get Burberrys. Everybody else gets the style, and we're always do a style. That was true. So I got Burberrys, and I wore mine home. I had my own long when I got in the door. And she was back up first train.
Really?
Oh, she took them back first thing on Monday morning.
And you had one at home.
One in the streetcar. Yeah. Oh, yeah, she was funny.
Probably no clerk
But, you know,
to refuse her.
She had a heart of gold. And the neighbours, there wasn't a neighbour that wouldn't have done anything for her, Lou, and I'm not bragging about that because that was what she was like. Her hand was always out, you know, giving, you know, somebody wanted something. And going and holding the candle when they were dying for the Catholics, they had to be, you know, the candle had to be held to let them see their way out. She'd be holding the candle. Then this day Mrs. Buchanan hadn't any holy water. I hope any Catholics listen to us. Holy water. So my mother says to Mrs.
Good about it, too.
My mother says to Mrs. Buchanan, she went out to the faucet and filled the bottle to the well, then to the priest, and that was all. No, she was really, Marion said, when my mother died, when my mother was ill, my mother was ill because she wasn't home when she died, but when my mother was sick, see, she took sick twice, and first time Joanne went home, and she stayed she had to come back because of the war.
Yeah.
She was an American citizen, and she had to come back. That was Mrs. Mackenzie had to come back too, and had to come all round by Gibraltar because the last boat was gone. Well, Marion, the next time she took sick, Marion went home. No, Marion went home first.
Yes, because Joanne...
Marion went home
second
first.
one, I
Marion went home
remember.
first. Marion went home first. And what am I going to say about that?
Well, when she did die...
Oh yeah,
all the people-
when she was sick, Marion said that she never knew my mother had so many friends. The door was never knocking at the door, how's Mrs. Woods, how's Mrs. Woods. She was, I won't say that, she never left us anything. $40 each was all her that was her legacy. But she never took 1 cent off us all her life. And when Joanne and Marion used to send her home $5 and that, she sent it back to me. But I was there to tell them. And I hope Joanne doesn't listen to this.
The truth is out.
But she paid, even her grave, everything was paid for her gravestone. And, any time Mima Kennedy, when she was in this home, when she died in this home, Mima went through every Saturday. It was in Paisley, which was, you went to Glasgow on the train and then you had to change and take another train to Paisley. And Mima went every Saturday to see her. And my mother saw that she could, she never was out anything, because she dealt Joanne. And when her whole thing was all finished, there was $160 left. So we each got 40. And that was it. But Joanne and I often talk that, we thought my mother was so hard, One time, is this all right to keep talking about this stuff? One time, when we would ask, could we get a pair of stockings? See, we always gave my mother our pay. We never were boarders. But she was fair. We got a good amount of pocket money. And if we were going anywhere, she always gave us wherever we needed to go. And vacations, she always gave us. Mm-hmm. It was much the better way to give it to her, because girls that I worked with kept themselves, that's what they used to say. And by Monday they didn't have a cent, where we didn't have to worry because we could, anytime we needed it. So this day, Joanne had asked for something. And the mother says, Joanne remembers this, I know. You keep your pie on Saturday and just see how far you can make it go. Well, when it came to Saturday, and Joanne had, I had £2.15 or something, and we were working in Singers's, and Joanne had almost £4 because she was in the missions and I wasn't. So she kept her pay. She'd had a grand time. She bought a Panama hat, and she bought an Irish lace blouse. This was all the style. And she bought the girlfriend earrings. Yeah, she didn't forget her. And she was just in her glory. So of course my mother, I was always the confident, On the Monday, my mother says to me, I was in her drawer and she's only got £1 left. She's only got £1 left. She says, well, just wait and see. And she hadn't even paid any board, that was the best. So Joanne was going her merry way, taking them to the movies and so on, being Mrs. Good guy. And on the Wednesday, my mother went back into her drawer and there was only 10 shillings. So she says to me, she's only 10 shillings in there. She says, I better take it, I'll get nothing. So she took the 10 shillings, which was a fraction of her pay. And she never tried that again, She never let her keep her pay again. Wally used to be so, he used to be mad when he would say, they two are out getting, and I never get anything. He says, if it's no styes the one week, it's stockings the next week. Styes, this is your gibble. And everything else, and I never get anything. She was good. My mother was good. We were very, very well. We wanted for nothing, and we had a good home. We had a happy home, My father was. One day, she was doing the fireside, and that's a big, big job, It's a black lead all the sides and then at the back. Sealed with emery paper and then burnished with a burnisher which was a very little bit. So I was washing the dishes at the sink, and evidently I must have been mad because I was talking away to myself. Well, she was blackleading, and the next thing, she threw the blacklead brush at me, but I ducked and I went out the window. It was through the window. So she got up. She was on her knee, and she got up. She went out to the door, and all Tam McClure, that was the man. There was a coal-ree across the street, coal place. We called it a coal-ree. It was a coal business. She says, who threw that stone? She was making believe that somebody had broke the window. And Mrs. Ruby says there hasn't been a soul passed here in the last half hour. So she was gone. The brush had dropped back into the sink, you see. The sink was right open. Oh, boy. Yeah. But she was awful good. And if Joanne and Marion sent home to get something, they would send the money maybe back. I remember there were raincoats. They sent home to get raincoats. Well, I got one tea. There was always some, whatever they paid for theirs, of course. I never paid for mine. She was awful good, really. But we thought it then she was so awful hard, terrible hard.
And of course, later on, when you and Dan and the kids came to this country, you went to her, didn't you?
Oh, yes, we stayed at my mother's, yes. We stayed first of all, we stayed in the Melrose Street. But it was just a little 4-room place, and there were 5 of us, and then there was my mother and Joanne, Mary, and Willie. That was 9. So it was far too small. And it was the first time we ever saw cockroaches. We never saw, we never had any of these things at home, We had bedbugs at home, but we never had cockroaches. So then after we were here some time, well, not long, because we had to look for a place. We've got this place in Cazenove Street, which was 6 rooms, a 6-room house, a single house. And Isabel's, the little girl that worked with Isabel and was one of our attendants, moved in after we moved out. You remember that, the little girl? I forget her name.
I do remember the girl that Isabel was
Yeah, and the priest said she shouldn't do it. She was to be one of Isabel's attendants, you see. She was a Catholic. Ross. Yeah. Isabel, no, it wasn't Isabel Ross, but it was Ross was her second name. So this was $50. The other house, I don't know what it was, but this was $50 a month. So I paid 20, and my mother paid 30, which she wouldn't let me pay half, but she paid 20. And then we halved the groceries, and so on. And it was a nice arrangement. My mother worked by this time. She was working nights.
What did she do for work, Mom?
She worked in the garden building. Auntie Mary worked there too. That was that big building across from my mother. There were an art school in it and all different things. My mother was the one that to clean the art school.
Oh, I see.
And she, cleaning. 11 at night to 2 in the morning. 11 to 2. And when my mother, she got her education. There was these nude statues in the art school. What kind of a place are we in? What kind of a country is this? And so on and so forth. Boy, oh boy. I was home at this time. And she worked to begin in the garden building, you know.
I see, you hadn't come.
I hadn't come, but then, of course, she still worked there when I came. And she worked in, besides that, she was working in this Hollanders. It was a big department store, Hollanders. I know the name. I don't know what she didn't do much there, but she didn't.
Oh, my goodness. Well, she had several jobs.
Oh, yeah, well, my mother wasn't so terribly dead old, you know.
No, she wouldn't have been.
No, when she came across first.
40s, in her mid-40s.
No, she would be more than that, Joanne. But she was a good worker. My mother was always a good worker.